There is a storm system crossing the Rocky Mountains right now, and it is not a typical one. 986 millibars. That is the central pressure being modeled as this low pushes out of California and into the plains. For reference, that depth of low pressure, crossing the Rockies, is the kind of number that meteorologists stop and look at twice. It means tight pressure gradients. It means very strong winds across the northern plains and Midwest, independent of any thunderstorm activity. It means the atmosphere is wound up. And it means what is about to happen over the next several days is going to affect tens of millions of people across a massive portion of the central and southern United States. Let me start with what is already happening, because Phase 1 is active right now. A marginal threat is in effect from the high plains near Lubbock in Texas all the way north to Rapid City in South Dakota. Isolated large hail and damaging winds are possible today. These storms are not the main event, but they are the opening act. Meanwhile, out on the Gulf Coast, showers are moving through, and on the West Coast, the California low is bringing non-severe rainfall to the coast. These are background events. The atmosphere is rearranging itself, and what it is rearranging into is one of the more significant setups of the spring season so far. Phase 2 begins tomorrow, and this is where the conversation changes. A secondary low-pressure center is setting up across Oklahoma and Kansas. As it deepens, it is going to create something very specific, a sharp dryline boundary stretching from central Kansas down into northern Texas. On the western side of that boundary, hot, dry air. On the eastern side, deep Gulf moisture, high dew points, and atmospheric instability that has been loading for days. That boundary is the trigger. If discrete supercells manage to fire along that dry line, and right now, models strongly suggest they will, the environment they will be moving into is extraordinary. Significant tornado parameter values in this region are being modeled at 5 to 6 in multiple areas. In isolated locations, the models are showing values approaching 10. 10 is the top of that scale. Let me be direct about what that means. It does not mean a tornado is guaranteed, but it means that if organized rotating storms develop along this boundary, the conditions exist for strong, long-track tornadoes. The conditions exist for giant hail, potentially exceeding 3 inches in diameter. Oklahoma City is directly in the focus area. Central Kansas and northern Texas are both in the zone. Storms are expected to initiate between 1 and 2 in the afternoon across South Dakota and Nebraska. The early afternoon timing matters. Daytime heating is still ramping up at that hour. Storms that fire in that window can stay discrete longer, meaning they can maintain their structure, their rotation, and their full severe weather potential before the squall line consolidates. The window between the first storm firing and the line formation, that is the highest tornado risk window. By evening, a large area of widespread storms will be tracking toward Eau Claire in Wisconsin, Minneapolis in Minnesota, and the Chicago corridor including Racine and Kenosha. For the Chicago metro specifically, this is a situation worth watching. A squall line pushing through a major metro area after dark, with embedded rotation still possible, is not a scenario to take lightly. But here is what makes this week different from a typical severe weather event. This does not end tomorrow. Friday, the severe threat continues. A linear storm complex develops, primarily focused on damaging winds, but hail and tornadoes remain in the picture. The Friday corridor targets Springfield in Missouri, Dallas-Fort Worth in Texas, Tulsa in Oklahoma, and Little Rock in Arkansas. That is a significant stretch of highly populated areas dealing with back-to-back severe weather days. Saturday, the Southern Plains reload. Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas face similar hazards again. This is the kind of multi-day sequence that exhausts emergency management systems and leaves communities with compounding damage. When severe weather hits the same region on consecutive days, trees are already down, power infrastructure is already weakened, flood-prone areas are already saturated. The second and third hits land harder than the first. Keep that in mind if you are in the plains this weekend. Sunday is the day that forecasters are watching most closely. The pattern on Sunday is extremely favorable for what meteorologists call an all-hazards severe weather outbreak. A dry line sets up again, this time targeting Dallas-Fort Worth, Wichita, Shreveport in Louisiana, and Little Rock in Arkansas. Gulf moisture will be deep, wind shear will be strong, instability will be maximized. This setup has the ingredients to be upgraded to an enhanced risk by the Storm Prediction Center before Sunday arrives. That is not the current official designation. But the environment being modeled for Sunday is one that supports that upgrade. If you are anywhere from Dallas-Fort Worth northward through Wichita, Sunday afternoon through Sunday evening is your critical window. All hazards on the table: tornadoes, giant hail, destructive winds. This is the peak of what is shaping up to be a multi-day outbreak. And then Monday arrives. By Monday, the severe weather axis shifts east. The Mississippi River Valley becomes the new focus, and Dixie Alley, the deep south corridor through Jackson in Mississippi into Alabama and Georgia, comes directly into the picture. Here is something that matters for context. Dixie Alley has been quiet for the entire year so far. Through all of 2026 to this point, this region has not seen a significant, severe weather event. That kind of anomalous quiet does not mean the region is safe. It means the atmosphere has been holding back. When Dixie Alley finally gets hit after a prolonged quiet stretch, populations can be less mentally prepared. The reflex of taking shelter, that muscle memory, can be slightly dulled after a long quiet period. Monday is the day to reset that awareness if you are in Mississippi, Alabama, or Georgia. Jackson, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, and the surrounding areas should treat Monday's setup with full seriousness. Let me give you the cleanest possible timeline summary. Today, marginal threat on the high plains from Lubbock to Rapid City, isolated hail and wind, background setup continuing. Tomorrow, Phase 2, dryline fires across central Kansas into northern Texas and Oklahoma, discrete supercells possible with long-track tornado threat. Oklahoma City is in the primary zone. Storms spread north toward Minneapolis and the Chicago metro by evening. Friday, linear threat continues. Springfield, Dallas-Fort Worth, Tulsa, and Little Rock all impacted. Damaging winds are the primary hazard, but all threats remain possible. Saturday, Southern Plains reload. Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas take another hit, compounding damage in already affected areas. Sunday, peak day, highest outbreak potential. Dryline setup targets Dallas-Fort Worth through Wichita and into Arkansas and Louisiana. Possible enhanced risk upgrade. All hazards. Monday, threat shifts east into the Mississippi River Valley and Dixie Alley. Jackson, Alabama, and Georgia come into focus. I want to address wind separately, because the wind threat this week extends well beyond the storm hazards. That 986 millibar low crossing the Rockies is creating very tight pressure gradients across the northern plains and the Midwest. Tight isobars mean strong surface winds, not storm winds, background winds, the kind that knock over semi-trucks on open highways, the kind that cause blowing dust and poor visibility across the open plains. If you are in South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, or Minnesota, strong, sustained winds and gusts are expected independent of whether a thunderstorm is nearby. Factor that into any outdoor plans, any travel, any work that involves height or open exposure. One more dimension to this week that deserves attention. The European model is hinting at a potential brief suppression of severe weather across the Midwest and Ohio Valley in the first week of May. That would represent a temporary break, not an end to the active pattern, but a pause. The atmosphere does not simply shut off after a week like this. The jet stream remains active, Gulf moisture continues to be available, and the next shortwave disturbance is already visible on the models following behind this one. This is a 2-week pattern, not a 2-day event. For those of you watching long range, here is what the extended period signals. The jet stream is locked in a highly active configuration. Multiple shortwave disturbances are queued up behind this system. The plains in the south are going to be dealing with repeated rounds of severe weather potential through mid-May. This is the kind of spring pattern that defines a season, the kind that produces the high-profile outbreaks that get remembered for years. It does not mean every single day brings destruction, but it means complacency is not an option this month. The bottom line this week is straightforward. If you are in Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, or Missouri, you have a multi-day severe weather threat beginning tomorrow. Have your shelter plan ready before the storms arrive, not during, before. If you are in Dixie Alley, the quiet ends Monday. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. Start preparing now. If you are in the Chicago metro or the Great Lakes corridor, tomorrow evening brings a squall line your way. Know your shelter options before sunset tomorrow. We will be tracking this system every step of the way. See you in the next update.